Om Tejyan Yoga Nugato Pasyan Devatma Shaktim Swagunair Nagudam Yaha Karanani Nikilani Tani Kalatma Yuktanya Adidishtat Yeka Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. Practicing the yogas of meditation and knowledge, the ancient rishis of India beheld the divine being, the Devatma Shakti, existing everywhere and in everything, who, though nevertheless veiled by the four modes of nature, was nonetheless one and indivisible, and who had been present all the while, but not detected due to the limitations of their own intellects. Om, peace, peace, peace. And there shines Brahman. May that Brahman protect us. May that Brahman sustain us. And may that Brahman illumine our thinking consciousness. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the teachings. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om, Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om Tat Sat. We are gathered here after some few weeks of absence from our usual Sunday format, because last Sunday we were finishing up a retreat on non-duality using Gaudapada's Karika and Tilopa's Mahamudra as a very beautiful hybrid. I would even hesitate to call it a hybrid, because when we studied them together, they seemed so much reflective of one another. And like Gaudapada is saying, that state of Mahamudra, or that state that he called Vijnanam, is like the return of the son to the mother after a long absence. And that kind of bliss, which is immediately familiar, immediately enjoyable at the exquisite level. And we've also had a short break on our Sunday format after finishing up teachings also on non-duality. So we take up all these teachings inside of several eternal principles that are not to be meddled with. They're with us eternally, like our subject today, basically the four yogas. Going to be talking about the Bhakta, the Jnani, the yogi, and the Sannyasin. All paths which I've come upon in my life and been a party to and practiced, taking the best from all of them to try and make a good comprehensive amalgam of the four yogas. That's Jnanam, higher wisdom gotten by discrimination, and devotion, love of the Lord, gotten through various bhakti practices, which we'll look at today. And then Dhyan Yoga, or Raja Yoga, it's called, also called Patanjala. The father of yoga, Patanjali, put that out in 8 limbs, some couple hundred years after Jesus's life here on earth, and some 700 years after Lord Buddha's life on earth. So it became recalled from ancient times from the Gita. Sri Krishna called it the Chaturdasha Yoga, the 4 yogas. So Jnanam, Bhakti, then Raja, and Karma Yoga. So these 4 kinds of practitioners, the Bhakta, the Jnani, the yogi, and the Sannyasin, Sannyasini too, those who are renounced, remind us of these eternal principles. They remind us of the presence of form and formlessness, for instance, which several of our God blogs last week were about. How to remember to worship God with form, at the same time move inward and upward in vibrating consciousness to a non-vibrational state, to keep the intellect from vibrating, or to keep from waving the firebrand, as Gaudapada says. So the intellect is still, like a candle in a windless place. Those are part of the Yoga Sutras. And the yogas of meditation, which are for formlessness, and then bhakti and karma, which are basically yogas of form, aren't they? So even in the four yogas, you see that pretty much Jnanam, with its tendency towards transcendental awareness, lifting itself up and out of all the tattvas, all the worlds, all forms like bodies. It's definitely a yoga of the formless nature, and so is meditation then. Although there can be meditation of God with God on form, which is a good thing to utilize. Even the father of yoga wanted that used as an alambana, how to make sure that you realize that you shouldn't be condemning things, you should be deifying them. That's a quote I saw from Swami Sheshanandaji today. Again, a beautiful saying that he said on the podium in front of us many times when he was in the body. Peace and blessings be upon him. That he said renunciation is not a matter of condemnation, as some people mistakenly think so. It's a matter of deification. So this is the blending of that jnanam and that dhyanam, or Raja Yoga, under the influence of bhakti, or devotion, which is basically God with form. Remember the personal God, worship the personal God. Don't cast it away, because it's a great bridge. Even Brahman himself, according to the Upanishads, or itself, used the mind of the Trinity to vouchsafe the teachings of non-duality to Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, so that they could turn away from the word and with their backs to it, Om behind them, project everything through the power of wisdom in this great Sankalpa, Maha Sankalpa, that Lord Brahma begins at the beginning of a cycle of creation in time, Kalpa, time, and Sankalpa, imagining time, and Vikalpa, desires in time. But there's also this great Mahasankalpa of Lord Brahma, which starts everything in motion after a long period of time through many yugas called Mahayugas, and then dozens and dozens of Mahayugas, until studying it for so long, living through it for so long, one develops a tendency towards formlessness. Maybe I've done this enough, kind of attitude or idea. But as one does, then one, as Holy Mother said, has to use the mind to find Brahman, and find yourself through the formless Brahman, through the mind, she says. It's very important at this state. This state means in the human form. She was in the human form when she said that. So she had that experience. It's very important that you find your way to Brahman. You'll have to use the mind to do that. There's no better way than that. So form and formlessness are a very important eternal principle. The two genders shouldn't be messed with. We were talking about that recently in the confusion of today. Male and female, Shakti and Shiva, we call them in our tradition. They're eternal. Krishna also talked about the four phases of time. The yugas are eternal. They just return. Then he talked about these four yogas that we'll be looking at in this title. They're also eternal. I gave them at the beginning of each cycle, beginning of time, to people so that they could come and go from world to world, and also leave the world. He also said that about the path of light and the path of darkness, sometimes referred to as the path of fire and the path of smoke, that beings come and go from the world via these two eternal paths. So there's some things that are just eternal. And of course, we're looking at this with an overall title called Advaita, the original divine vidya, wisdom, original divine wisdom, which includes these 24 cosmic principles, which are stepping stones upon which consciousness will come out from its hiding place in formlessness, take on form, give up form, and return back to its source and give up form again, just like you do every 24 hours. It's not difficult to prove this when it's happening to you. You don't have to take in hearsay or anyone else's word or word against it for that being the case, because you're living that all the time. It's your experience. Those are called the 4 feet of Brahman: waking, dreaming, deep sleep, and Turiya. How Brahman gets around through consciousness. I guess you can make a grand argument for the case that Brahman takes forms, or Brahman visits worlds, and all of this. Like John said about Jesus, no one has ever seen God with these eyes. So he was looking at Jesus, but he wasn't seeing God. He was seeing an incarnation of God, a manifestation of God, an expression of God. So you could make a grand point on any level for the non-existence of God in form. But the exemplar then steps forward and gives you teachings on the existence of what's beyond all of this sport, this play, this dream, this illusion, this deception, this false superimposition, this avidya, this maya, this samsara. Shall I go on throwing words from different times and periods of time in India to you, so you can get on the same page with me today for this class. So basically, when I thought of the title for it some months ago, a couple months ago, I said we can say the 4 kinds of divine practitioner: the Bhakta, who practices Bhakti yoga; the Jnani, who, as it were, practices Jnana yoga; and the yogi, who practices Jnana yoga; and the Sannyasin, who practices transcendence of all of them. Karma yoga gets left out there. Why is that? Because everyone's doing it. Krishna says in the Gita, you cannot go against your own nature. When you're in a form, you have to act. So the wisdom about that then he gives in the teachings is that one has to act in accordance with the Dharma. One should never go against the Dharmic teachings. These very teachings I'm uttering right now about the 2 eternal paths, the 2 eternal genders, the 4 yogas, the 4 phases of time. These have been with us forever. And what's the proof of that? Because here it is, 2024, and in a Western country, materialistic nonetheless, in the new millennia and so forth, on, and we still are thinking about them. We're still trying to share them with others. The gurus are trying to transmit them. The rishis are coming back anew, like Swami Vivekananda, to try and cause the mind to remember them. So that Bhakta, Jnani, Yogi, Sannyas, a few weeks after I put that title together, I realized using the first letter of each one of those is spelled bijas. So the bijams are, of course, power seeds: B, Bhakti; J, Jnanam; Y, Yogi; and S, Sannyasin, the bijams. So that's a good way to remember it. If you want to try and recall it, to remember what was that teaching that Babaji was giving. Oh yes, we slimmed it all down to bijas, these power seeds, these power words. And this fits very well with our upcoming seminar, I think, in about 3 weeks now, is that as the 3 Sundays, right, we'll be in the midst of it. And that has to do with the path of divine knowledge, how it dovetails with mantra yoga, how words, wisdom words, and the mantras and the bijams, a word I just uttered, all come together and reveal to us this path. And so if we look at that path and call it wisdom, then we have to meditate upon it. And we meditate upon it, then we see the difference between meditation and non-meditation, or action and inaction. And when action comes to bear, we realize we have to be participating in karma yoga. I read in the Gita today, a quick line went by, karma belongs to Ishvara. So it's a really beautiful teaching to remember, because he says that in terms of adidaiva, adibhuta, adiyagya, and adiyagya. It's all my sacrifice. This is my karma. I sacrifice for this. It all belongs to me. Therefore, do the work, but don't do it for the results. Just leave the results with the Lord. In other words, do the work to the best of your ability. Leave the work for the Lord, the results for the Lord. So it's an eternal teaching. Talk about these teachings that last forever. And probably because people suffer so much, particularly in this yuga called the Kali Yuga, is that they're not following that rule. They're trying to take everything to the small self. Even Lord Buddha said that, and the Upanishads concur. Is that there are two selves here, Lord Buddha says. One's the true self, and one's the false self. That is, one's the Atman, or Buddha nature, he would call it, and the other one's the Anatman, or the ego. And so these two are kind of an eternal teaching that have been following us around forever. Is it true? The ego's been getting a hold of all of our work and taking credit for it, causing us to think that the work and the fruits both belong to us, but only the work really belongs to us. And then we have to remember to do the work very cautiously, very carefully, very sensitively, very consciously, very mindfully, so that the results coming back will not throw us off the yogic path. And then we will have imbalance of mind. But then imbalance of mind, if you can't get it back right away, it begins to settle in as a habit, and people are actually even born with imbalanced minds. You might have noticed the children of the day and so forth having a very hard time concentrating, always restless, causing evil acts against their parents. So much of that going on in our own experience here as we look at the world, as we travel. We just traveled for 2 weeks outside of our beautiful, peaceful Hawaii. But coming back here, then we have this beautiful topic to look at, and I just chanted Tejan Yoga Nugata Pasyan. So through this yoga of meditation and wisdom that came from it, that the rishis all of a sudden beheld that beautiful Sanskrit word, Devatma Shaktim. So Devatma, the god or the goddess, the divine, Shakti, the creative, dynamic power in everything. And first thing we would notice as a sign of her presence would be prana. That is, how the hands move, how the eyes see, how the thoughts are being formed in the mind, uttered through the mouth by the tongue. All of this is a sign of prana. So, but Jesus saw the tendency in that way of believing in the Middle East, and was talking about man living by a different power than just food. He was living by the prana that was in food, but then there's another problem there is you begin to depend upon food, as Sri Ramakrishna said in the Kali Yuga, thinking that keeps you alive. But it might be true for your physical body, but your spiritual body just died. See, it's dead, and you can't bring it back because it didn't get prana at its source. It relied so much, it thought it was the body, and it relied so much on nutrition from physical food, it didn't go back to the source of prana and find there a grand meal of nourishment called knowledge. See, that's what man lives by, wisdom, because all of this is a projection of Mother Wisdom. Every object is a projection of Mother Wisdom. If you don't have the wherewithal and ability to see that, then every object is a problem in Maya. See, it's attended by attachment, desire, destruction, decay. All these things then start creeping in. But the unreal never is, Krishna says. Don't believe in that. Na sat vidyate bhavo na bhavo vidyate sataha. The real always is. The unreal never is. What's real never ceases to be. But the real then is back hidden inside. In the cave of the heart, Upanishad said, where 100,000 nerve endings meet at the hub. There lies yourself, your Atman. And so, whereas physical food is important for keeping the body alive and well, it's important because the body can then engage in spiritual practice called sadhana. Somebody was interviewing me just recently for some writing in a book that they're doing. And I had to tell them that the source of everything that's gained, it's worthwhile here, is done by sadhana. I was a sadhaka my whole life. Starting at 19 years of age, when I discovered the path and the teacher, I became a sadhaka. So that's similar to sadhak in Jewish, means a teacher in Judaism, but basically sadhaka starts with an S in our tradition, is to exert, with tapas, to heat everything up so that the dross gets boiled out of it. The longer you can keep up this path of sadhana, the purer and purer your mind will become. And the more and more the overlays of Maya will not find a purchase point upon your thought process. So that's what we just chanted, may our Brahman illumine our thinking process. How can it do that if we're hanging on to these veils as if they were real and Brahman isn't? Only Brahman is real, the world's not. Brahman Satya Jagad Mithya is the famous saying in Vedanta about that. So you might say these four kinds of sadhakas or spiritual practitioners have parted company with the worldly. They've parted company with theories and parted company with things that are based in cause and effect. Parted company with the belief in origins. We had a whole head full of that for 4 days into retreat recently, that Gaudapada is saying non-origination is the truth, that over millennia, beings believe in duality. They believe that something had a beginning. If it has a beginning, it has to have a middle, it has to have an end. So it had a birth, it had a life, and it had a death. And the belief in this is what Sri Ramakrishna says causes people to come back into the body again and again, because that's all they know. So at some point in time, they heard that everything's unoriginated, that you can give up your belief in origins, and you can adopt this beautiful non-dual theory, or I should say truth, eternal truth, theory to most people, that everything's unoriginated, ajati, and that Maya is making it appear otherwise. So this is why Sri Ramakrishna said, examine Maya from a distance, because you'll see that it's foisting upon you the idea of things have beginnings, like my birthday and my death and all of this, like my waking and my deep sleep, or my life in Maya, my life enlightened, bondage and liberation. Everything, the ego and Maya get together and try and convince you that everything is based in origins and dualities then give rise to multiplicity, and multiplicity is relativity. So in that way, then, these four practitioners, the Bhaktas, the Jnanis, the yogis, and the Sannyasins, have parted company with that kind of thinking. And they're very independent. And they will defend their faith of non-origination to the very end, like Vivekananda said, from the cradle to the grave, from the first breath to your last breath. realize that the Atman is eternal and that thou art that. See? And do away with these false imaginations. I put that in Friday's God log, right? He's talking about kalpanamatra. That is basically people imagine things and then they live in the imaginations of them. That's called a Gandharva castle in the sky by Gaudapada. Later on, people took that teaching and called it castle in the sky in the West. So this is a false projection of the mind. And so you're to tear those imaginations away and do that by following the path of intelligence, not imagination. The path of intelligence, your own inherent intelligence, it needs to be sharpened. King Arthur found Excalibur, the sword, right? And one story goes that it was all rusty, he just found it in a pile of junk. And then he realized its worth, and then he started sanding it off. He said so much corrosion had adhered to the blade, and then it shone again. So just like that, we all have this sword of wisdom that Mother planted in us that has become rusty. For the Bhakta, it's the needle that Sri Ramakrishna used to talk about. The needle of your mind has become dull and rusty, so get a salt solution and wash it off. So that salt solution is obvious, tears. Tears of love for God. So that's what we want to start this series off with today. Next week, we'll get a little bit more into because we have just 3 classes, 3 Sundays to do this, these 4. And we'll get into some of the teachings that are key to the Jnanis in the most simple way possible, because there's very comprehensive wisdom, deep, profound, long-lived in Jnanam. But Bhakti is fairly simple to understand. There are some very beautiful practices, but they're not difficult to comprehend. We'll look at those today and see how the bhaktas proceed in life. You might say that in the same way that you can't advance in meditation in loving God, increasing devotion for God, and doing your work right without Jnana Yoga doing away with ignorance. In the same way, you could also say that unless your wisdom, your studies, your meditations, and your work are not done with love of God, it's also the same case. It's going to be very difficult to make any kind of real advancement. So this is why in the Ramakrishna order, we have the 2 wings of the bird. We feel that Bhakti and Jnanam are kind of how the bird gets off the ground, that you want to be developing both sides of this. And then why stop there? Because meditation is another aspect of your life and work is the other. See, so for a long time, people were talking about how Bhakti and Jnanam were totally different from each other. They were opposites. And then it's obvious that meditation and action are also opposites, because in meditation, you're beyond all action, ideally. And in action, it's very difficult to meditate on it because you have to be concentrated on your work. So these 4 yogas can be divided into 2 twos, and these 2 twos have a very hard time getting along in most people's minds. So how much more is the sadhaka going to have to exert in order to coalesce all 4 of them? See, that's what we want to talk about today, that the great souls we saw like Swami Vivekananda, the great masters we saw like Holy Mother and Sri Ramakrishna, had all 4 of these yogas in full side of them. The whole ocean of immortality was in them, and they can express it through all these avenues. So we want to become that facile with the 4 yogas. And in fact, in the Gita, Sri Krishna talks about Chaturdasha Yoga in chapter Kshetragya Vibhaga Yoga, it's called, the 13th chapter of the Gita. So since he put it into the Gita, it has been a long time since it's been brought forth, in the same way that it's been a long time since anyone brought forth the idea of the harmonization of all religions. So in this day and age, we had Sri Ramakrishna come, show the similarity, the essential oneness of all religions. And we have Swami Vivekananda come back and, to quote him, said, "I've brought a new gift for you. It's a redistribution, the recoalescence and distribution of the ancient four yogas." So it's very good that he did, because basically the only word probably most people know about as far as yoga is concerned today is hatha. So it's only a physically based thing. So these four yogas, their import is beginning to be brought back to us. So he brought that back and pointed it out that it was Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, Kshetra, Kshetragya, Vibhaga Yoga, in slokas 24 and 25, where these four yogas were brought forth at the time. And he said this to who? Arjuna. Where? On the battlefield of Kurukshetra. What a great time to teach him about meditation while acts like war are going on. What a great time to teach him how to have devotion to the Lord when people have become imbalanced with thoughts of violence. How to become peaceful again. Even how to become peaceful as you're engaging in a war. And how to become detached by knowing basically the Jnanam, that all of this is an illusion, is a dream. If you knew non-origination, which Arjuna didn't yet, then you'd know that you can't kill anyone out there and they can't kill you. You're thinking you're a body, and so are they. That's how deluded people have become. And they're fear-driven to think they're the body. And the five senses relation with the objects, that's Maya. That's another definition of Maya for you. So he's on the battlefield, and what a great time to get to teaching the four yogas, which Krishna sang to him like this. Dhyanena atmani pashanti kechit atmanam atmana anye samkhya yogena karma yogena chapare anye tvevam ajanataha shrutvanyadye pasyate te pichai tarantevam mrityum shruti param janaha. By meditation, some behold the self in the self, by the self. Others do it by the yoga of knowledge. And yet others do it by karma yoga. Still others, not knowing these, worship as they have heard from others. They too go beyond death by devotion to what they have heard. A selection of the Gita, which we chanted for 4 mornings recently at our retreat on the Columbia River Gorge. So he's pretty clear about this, that by meditation, some behold the self by the self in the self. That's why the word Atman, Atmanam, and Atmani appear in that first sloka. And then he says, but others will do it by the yoga of knowledge. We would say, oh, Raja Yoga, but back then they called it Buddhi Yoga. And there's several slokas on Buddhi Yoga in that same chapter, because real Jnanam is to know the field or its knower. This is selected from the chapter Kshetra, Kshetragya. That is, if you know you're the knower and the field is the tattvas, and the field is the worlds, the various worlds in space of time. And if you're not careful, the worlds, that's also going to become Maya and samsara to you, if you're not careful to keep the discriminating wisdom in sight as you act, for instance. say on the battlefield, on any battlefield. And then he goes on to say that others do it by karma yoga. So then still others not knowing these worship as they have heard from others. So he's saying that probably the most natural path to get to every enlightenment is bhakti yoga. It's also the easiest path. And he says that people have to refer to it because they don't know meditation, because they don't know jnana, and they don't know how to work. So bhakti comes along, and by what they heard, they increase their devotion, and they get salvation. So these four yogas are these four eternal paths which I gave to humanity at the beginning of time. That is the beginningless beginning of cycles of time. So this kind of sets us up for this newer chart on the four yogas. You probably can think back, if you studied footfalls and so forth, to the traditional chart that we use. Four yogas in four picture frames. You can imagine it. It's in Footfalls of the Indian Rishis book, and you can get that out and look at it. But since then, some 10, 15 years later, I came up with another four yogas teaching, more along the line under mother wisdom. When I read this quote, Vivekananda said, "Be not afraid, but work with the intrepidity of a lion, but at the same time with the tenderness of a flower. What is wanted are muscles of iron, nerves of steel, inside which dwells a mind of the same material as that which the thunderbolt is made of. Be among the world's bravest and best who are willing to sacrifice themselves for the good of the many. Buddhists by the hundreds are necessary," says Swami Vivekananda in the Complete Works. And we might as well take the quote at the bottom of the chart too, as long as we're setting this up to understand. We Vedantists, nice that he's including us in that, because he came to the West and brought us Vedanta, and now we can claim it for our own heritage. We Vedantists in every difficulty ought to ask the subjective questions: why do I see that? Why can I not conquer this with love? Then the abstract Advaita will become living, poetic in everyday life. Out of hopelessly intricate mythology will come concrete moral forms, and out of bewildering yogiism will come the most practical and scientific psychology. And all of this must be put in a form so that a child may grasp it. So if you were to examine this quote later, which I hope you will, you'll find out he's talking about the four yogas. Each one of those phrases suggests another yoga, but it also is inferring that yogi can become kind of too intricate, too mystic. Because at one time he said, "I don't favor the mystics all that much." And the tendency of a lot of people in spiritual life, especially in the West, is to get into the mystics. Oh, it's got to be mystical, and it's got to be something that I'm going to go seek in a cave somewhere. It's got to be hidden. I've got to ferret it out, so forth. But that knowledge is given to you straight out in scriptures like the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, and so forth. And that what you have to ferret out of it all is your own self. See, some beings behold the self, by the self, in the self. Those are the really graduated, matured beings who are born that way. They say, "Oh, I see this play, all this unreality, all this change going on when there is no change. I see all this birth, death, and life going on when there's no origination to anything. Why do I see that?" See, this is why he's saying that. It's Vedantists, we ought to say to ourselves, why do I see that? So it's not just, why do I see suffering? Why do I see ignorance? And why do I see people in such dire straits all the time? Because the seers are looking at the same thing and saying, I see Brahman, I see Brahman. You see Brahman acting like it's suffering. I see Brahman pretending it's ignorant. I see Brahman in the dire straits, giving people teachings to wake them up from those dire straits. And so this is an unmeddled with, focused, single-minded, devoted vision of reality that they're holding all the time. And so as a sort of concession, Vivekananda sticks back off that, includes himself, us with himself, and himself with us, and says, we Vedantists, we ought to ask ourselves, why am I seeing that? So it's not like asking, why is there suffering? That's a question without an end. And also, suffering is a part of the world. Who said that? Lord Buddha said it's the first noble truth. So if it's in the fabric of the world, then why are you asking why it's there? Are you just futile questions, right? And so, oh, I should go do something about it. What about doing nothing about it? Because it's not real. It doesn't occur to people, you see, that they should transcend it. Because once they transcend it, they can convince others to transcend it. You can't grasp onto something unreal. So you can't get into it with them and say, oh, let's work real hard on getting rid of the suffering of the world. That's a mistake that's being made over and over and over again by billions of people. And a lot of them just falling into worse, dire straits, like, say, our politicians and scientists in the West and so forth. So there's a whole new fresh view. There's a whole new dispensation about this. And a part of this has to do with the 4 yogas. And it's a good sandwich, these 2 quotes, to look at when you look back on your notes this week, which I hope you do, and contemplate these truths for yourself and do away. Why do I see that? Why does it keep recurring to me? I give it up. I renounce it. It's gone. And it's not even a burnt rope anymore. See, because we had that teaching at the retreat. People were complaining about the burnt rope. You should be actually happy about the burnt rope. But here's the tendency of human mind again. You get rid of some karma, it's gone. You have a memory of it. So now you're going to the memory of it and you're enhancing it, right? Why aren't you just saying, it's a burnt rope, it can't bind me? So the tendency of human mind always got to go to the con, not to the pro. It always wants to brood instead of be free. Enough of that. Do away with it. Strike off thy fetters, bonds that bind thee down, of shining gold and darker, baser ore. Strike them off. Slough off that skin of the snake for the last time and emerge fresh and free as you are. I mean, don't forget that. Emerge fresh and free, not because it's your first freedom, it's because that's your original freedom we're talking about that was lost somewhere along the way. And why are you brooding about that and making it real? Again, you see. So the Bhakta deals with this in a classic way. See, we see here Bhakti Yoga basically lovingly conducts arati before the deities. So Sri Ramakrishna is bowing down before Mother Kali and people are criticizing him. Oh, he worships images. He's bowing before statues made of cork and gold paint and vermilion. And he says, what are you talking about? I'm not doing that. That's not Mrinmoyi, a deity made of earth. It's Chinmoy, a deity made of consciousness. I don't know what you're saying, but I'm seeing consciousness there, you see. And so here's an avatar, number 1. Number 2, somebody who's had nirvikalpa samadhi many times. Somebody who has appeared in other ages as an avatar, from Ram to Ramakrishna, from Ram to Krishna to Ramakrishna, conducting worship in front of the altar. And so you're supposed to, somehow feel guilty for that. Not if you're a bhakta, you don't. This is your love of the Lord expressing itself. This is the mudra for it, mriga. See, what's there is here. So when you set up an altar, you should say that and say, why am I seeing otherwise? That's the Lord in the image. And that image came from here, you see. So you make the connection and both are real. So the ritual is going to make the mistake of just, it's only there, you see, and it wasn't here. And the practitioner is going to go, maybe if I do that, it'll show up here. But they're running a risk of it not showing up there because their worship isn't every day, isn't dedicated, isn't done according to the tradition. There are things to do, but let's look at them. Devoutly offers puja with a worshipful attitude. Oh, we've done that in SRV for over 30 years. Every center we had, we set up altars, beautiful altars. And we gave pujas and aratis all the time, every week, throughout the years. We're still doing it. So this is your worship to the Lord. And has the Lord ever appeared to us? Does anyone ever see God with form? That's not our concern. What is our concern is that our devotion has increased. And when it's the mother's own time, she'll reveal the Lord to us. And probably it will come as our own self. Guess what? You're it. You know, the cosmic game of tag we talk about. You're it. The Bhakta performs mantra practice to commune with Ishvara. So next, join us in 3 weeks for that beautiful blending of Jnana Yoga with Mantra Yoga. This is a good predecessor, the 4 yogas, for that seminar we're going to do on those 2 yogas, which are essential practices to SRV aspirants and adherents. We're doing the yoga of knowledge along with the yoga of concentration, along with the yoga of discrimination in meditation with bhakti. So you could say, well, I wish I could practice all 4 of those. Why don't you instead sit up and say, oh, I am. Pardon me. I'm just looking at my own life here and I see how I'm doing all 4 of those all the time. That's who I am. That's what I am. Chaturdasha yoga are us. Sings devotional hymns to the Lord and the Divine Mother. Like, say this one. Vasudeva Sarvam, Vasudeva Sarvam, Ekameva Dvaitiyam, Vasudeva Sarvam, Vasudeva Sarvam, Vasudeva Sarvam, Suridam Sarva Bhutanam, Vasudeva Sarvam. You know it. It's on the very first CD album I ever put out, called Bhajans of Love and Wisdom. And we go on singing, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. He's the Lord of all the worlds. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. Atmani Vishwadarshanam. When we see ourselves, we see the Lord. And when we see the Lord, we see ourselves. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. And then Atmani Vishvadarshanam. I'm actually having darshan, communion with my own self when I see the Lord. Manmayi mam upashrita Vasudeva Sarvam. So I think I make my point. You just sit down and sing that in the midst of your busy day, and you'll feel emotion akin to devotion welling up inside of you. But if you don't do it, you're missing that opportunity. The Bhakta won't miss the opportunity to do that every day. That's like a part of life, big part of life. All 4 of these points are a big part of their life. And if they're not doing them, they're thinking them. Engages in loving prayer for the good of all beings. So the Bhakta is not a selfish person. The love of the Lord has made them wide, has made them broad, has made them capacious, has made them universally minded. They're thinking about other beings too. At our retreat, we had people from other lineages. We had a Sufi there, and we had people who follow other paths than ours. So we're always thinking about the good of all beings, and probably it's the easiest of all paths, bhakti yoga, in which you can do that. It just opens the doors to everyone. And here's a good one because it's said by one of our kings of bhakti yoga named Narada. We can look at some of his teachings too. Recites the scriptures for family and sangha. So that might not be the non-dual scriptures because maybe family and sangha aren't quite ready for that amongst the bhaktas, but they'll recite the Narada Bhakti Sutras, recite the Ramayana, and the Gita, of course, is a part of all levels. So this happens every day as a part of the family life in the bhakta. It does so in other religions too. You chant, read from the Bible, the Quran, and so forth. So people around the world are worshiping the one God through these various exercises called love of the Lord, bhakti yoga, and fulfills the 5 yagyas daily. Of all of these, probably the one I chose to comment on more is here. So we'll come back to this, but let's look at what one of those exercises is here. The 5 moods, basically. So here's a chart by the 4 forms of liberation, 5 divine moods that includes these kinds of teachings. Sri Krishna says in the Gita, 4 types of virtuous beings worship me, Arjuna. The one in distress, the one seeking knowledge, the one seeking wealth, that of course would be for right means, and the one imbued with wisdom. Of these, the wise one, ever steadfast and devoted to the one, excels. For supremely dear am I to the wise one, who is exceedingly dear to me. So he's talking about in one sloka worship and wisdom, isn't he? So immediately you can infer 2 wings of the bird there. Anyone who's got a narrow view would be thinking, oh, he's saying wisdom. Oh, then back to, no, he's saying worship. And so it's not going to get the connotation. It's not going to come through of the universality and the superiority of blending all ways, all paths, all beings who come from the one God. Some of the quotes here, Sandilya's Bhakti Sutras don't get mentioned that much, and we haven't studied them that much. They're very Jnani-oriented, Sandilya's Bhakti Sutras, whereas Narada's are very much permeated with a lot of obvious love and devotion. But Sandilya says, identification with the Lord is gained through undivided devotion. Liberation is gained when the inner organ dissolves completely in him. Well, it sounds like you'd be taking the path of discrimination into dissolution. That's the best path for that. If you have a constitution and a nature like Sri Ramakrishna, then singing and dancing will dissolve you into the Lord just as easily as wisdom will. But how many people have that? How many people can keep, say, the ego show out of their dance, out of their chanting, and so forth? How many are actually singing to the Lord when they sit down to sing, or they're saying, "Oh, this is pretty. I like this. I'm singing." You see, I enjoy this with my ears. You see, but they're actually offering this, just like in front of the altar. You're really offering it. You're not just going through the motions. So it's a fault of worship sometimes. And of course, no better exemplar than Mirabai, as our, here, we call her our poster girl here. She stands forth with her one-stringed ektar and her outright devotion to Sri Krishna. We were just talking about the God blogs yesterday and how Sri Ramakrishna said Radha, if she saw a bluish gray cloud, would go into samadhi, would go into devotional state, because that's Krishna's color. Sham, it's called Shama. Or she'd see a woman go by with a blue dress. She wouldn't be looking at, oh, what a nice dress. I wish I had that. Or isn't that woman pretty? The blue, reminded her of Krishna's complexion. She went into samadhi. So we've talked about this divine association that God blog was about, and you mentioned it too there. It's about the mind being susceptible to things. And I had a caution when I taught that, when I put it into the teaching, saying, be careful about being susceptible to things. Like a lot of people are susceptible to stress. That's not a good thing. They're susceptible to brooding. That's not a good thing. Be susceptible to the Lord's presence in all things, or to the symbology of how one person was traveling away from his province, and he saw at the temple of Radhakanta saw an axe, and he knew that the handle was made of balba wood. So he went back home, and some months later, he saw an axe. Immediately, he was like thrown back to the temple of Krishna and was in a deep state. That kind of susceptibility is what Sri Ramakrishna had in spades, well, actually in axes. So, we need to be open to that as well. And Sage Narada, next to Sage Sandilya, very good here. There is no difference between God and his devotees. That sounds pure Advaita to me. That put in a bhakti setting. The signs of love are peace and bliss. So, signs of knowledge, not so easy to see. Like Holy Mother saying, why have you come to see me? Have I grown two horns? She's fully illumined. She's got this massive knowledge because she's the mother of wisdom. I mean, imagine what she knew, what she had access to give to us and she gave it to us through her children, Brahmanandam, Shivam, Shantam, Premarupan, all the 16 direct disciples were her children, giving out this wisdom to the world, and still are doing it through the sons of her sons. So signs of peace and bliss for the bhaktas, it's like Lex Hickson, our founder, first met me. I was saying at the retreat, oh, I see you have Shantadasha. So he saw me for a person who loved peace. Earlier today, I was thinking up here in my house on the hill, I love peace. I just had that thought. I really like peace. So why should I travel anywhere? And why should I go about and do this and that way? And I just have the peace alone. I'll be satisfied with that. See? So when you come down to something that you really love and you really love, and you can put everything behind you or out of the way and just have that and live in that, then you could do that with the Atman, you see. You could do that with the 4 yogas. Make sure that you have all those things well within you. Any other quotes there? Yes. Since we brought up Holy Mother, the Lord and Master resides within me in a subtle form. In the same way, I will reside within you as well in a subtle form. So I just mentioned her sons and her daughters, that she's manifesting through them. And when I got my initiation from Swami Sheshanandaji Maharaj, and he had just initiated my wife, he said, she's the daughter of Divine Mother. So that's the only thing he ever said in that regard. So immediately I saw a way he was seeing everything, how Shakti is in everything. Tejan Yoga, Nagata Pashan, Devatma Shakti, Svagunaya Nagudam. Beyond the gunas, there's this divine energy flowing everywhere. Beyond prana even. Beyond peace and bliss also. Those are the signs of it moving in an immovable way too. So this is why the teachings get deeper and deeper and more profound as you delve into them. And the final quote here, or semi-final, transcending all other forms of love, love the Lord and love him as his eternal servant and be his eternal bride. So that kind of brings us up to this 5 moods. The bhaktas, and I say bhakti has been refined down to a great essence by the Vaishnavas of India. the lovers of Ram, lovers of Krishna, Ram and Sita, Krishna and Radha, and other great divine couples. So in that way, then they've been able to bring forth a path of bhakti that's discernible and practicable. And that's what this is here. The Shantadasha, which I just mentioned, is the mood of peace. So I say if you had problem with restlessness and say, I think I want peace instead. So you dedicate yourself to the Lord through the mode of peace. Peace, give me peace, O Lord. As Holy Mother said, you need peace of mind first and foremost. You can't get anything else without peace of mind. So if I take her word to her word, then I should really engender peace inside myself and not deviate from that. And then it'll become a habit in me, and I'll just always be peaceful no matter what happens in Maya, no matter what the world throws at me, no matter what my own karmas that come forth due to my practice tell me. I'll always have this peace that passes on all understanding, as Jesus called it. The next mood is dasya, mood of a servant. So people going and choosing names for themselves in the West. Oh, I think I'll be this Das and that Das and this Das. Das Boot. It'll be a submarine. So they're making themselves Keshava Das or Hanuman Das or and so that means they want to be servants of this great soul. And so that's a path in which the bhaktas choose for themselves. They have the idea of service. So that really dovetails well with what? Karma yoga, doesn't it? Because if you can do your actions for the sake of the Lord, and this also with the puja, right? And with the prayers and with the music, do it for the Lord. When I first sang these songs, came back from India the first time, sang them for my guru who lived in Portland, Oregon. He smiled rarely, a rare smile on me, and he said, very good, but never sing to people. Sing to people, sing to the Lord who dwells in people's hearts. I remember that very clearly. He told me that. Never sing for people, because I had been a classical musician and playing in front of audiences and so forth. So it was kind of a mode that we all got into, Oh, your people would come here, they pay money, they want to hear. You play them a symphony, they go away happy and so forth. And so you go away happy, hopefully, because you did a good job. But basically, it was not the lesson to be learned. It's that you're paying for the Lord, because the Lord is the reality, and people are just the expressions. And these expressions are of different kinds. Some of them are ugly, some of them are beautiful, some of them have false beauty. Some of them are coarse, some of them are refined, some of them are high, some of them are low, some of them are greedy, some of them are unselfish and generous. There's just this mixture of forms and names out there, and you never know what the vibrations you're throwing at them in terms of music you're playing or songs you're singing will do to them. You never know what it'll do to them. So we were naive at first. It's all in the 80s, it was all about healing. Oh, music will be healing, So boy, it didn't take me long to give up that idea. Our music can soothe the savage beast. That wolf did not like my music. He still bit me, you see. So, it's all naivete that goes on. So basically, you transcend all that and you pierce through it all by seeing the Lord in all beings and seeing the Lord in yourself. Shall I sing it again? Jnanena atmani ashanti kichid atmanam atmana. By meditation, some behold the self in the self, by the self. So that leaves nothing to chance or doubt. Is that the self is all in all, and nothing else exists. And thou art that, you see, as Vivekananda said so nicely. All right, Sakya is the next mood of a friend. You must see these, because Ramakrishna said you choose one of these for a whole lifetime. He practiced all five, but you can't really do that unless you're a thorough, quick, steady like him, complete master, a great master, a master of masters. Then you can do something like that, or like harmonizing all religions. But basically, for most people, and we were to think in India in the 1800s when he was living there, so they don't have the time nor the ability yet, to practice two or three of them. Choose one, and bring your focus together, so you'll be peaceful, so that you'll have a friend, so that you'll be a true servant, and won't betray the path or the Lord. That's what you're going to need to do. And so it's important to say this not only about the five moods here, but about the religions. Choose one. Also about the paths inside the religions. Choose one. Also about the gurus who teach the paths inside of the religions. Choose one. It's just a simple lesson, and nobody will follow it. They're running about like a rutting elephant, spraying water out of its trunk on everything, Shista says. So drinking from different pools and then spraying it out all over the place indiscriminately. So one is a beautiful word, eka. We just said eka meva dvaitiyam, we just sang. All is oneness, all is Advaita, all is unoriginated, all is unchanging. Don't fall for the assumptions that the ego and connected to the mind and the senses fall for. Draw back like a turtle, its four limbs when it's in danger. Draw back. So, mood of a friend. Wouldn't you like to have a good friend? In our tradition, which is Ramakrishna's tradition, there's a beautiful book called The Eternal Companion. That's by Swami Brahmananda, and some of the great teachings he gave when he was alive, one of the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. So he called it the Eternal Companion. The Rig Veda talks about it a lot too. Indram Mitram Varunagni Matarato Diviha Sasuparna Garutman Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vedanta Yagni Agni fire, and all of Indram, the god of the gods, god of the senses, Mitra, Varuna, god of earth and water, Matarato Jivyaha, Suparna Garutman, even Garuda, the dragon bird. See, God appears as all of these things, and appears also as your eternal companion, a friend of all beings. So that's how deep Sakya could go as a path. Then Vatsalya, the parental mood. It could be, I'm the son of God, I'm the daughter of God. It could be, God's my baby, because Yashoda, and so forth, had these loving. See, was it here? I think here, see how these moods, we could look at these to go deeper if we had the time, which is to see how Radha and Mira's love, and whereas I was looking for here, Vatsalya Baba is Yashoda's love for the baby Ram, you see. And so Kausalya had love for the baby Ram, I mean. So this is evinced in all of the beautiful appearances of the avatar of the different ages. Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali, right on down to Kali Yuga. Now we have this great path of being the eternal path of being the child of God. It's a very good way of putting it. But sometimes, like in the terms of Lord Himalaya, who got baby Uma as his child, the Lord turns it around and becomes your child. See? Like Ramakrishna's parents. They're apart in India, and all of a sudden they both have a vision, one in the Shiva temple and the other one in Bodh Gaya, Buddha's birth, Buddha's enlightenment. They both had a vision about how God was going to come as their child. That would be Gadadhar Sri Ramakrishna. And so the Lord will turn it around on you sometimes and to become your child. So that also should be figured into the Vatsalya mood. You can say, I want to be born with great rishis as parents, or I want to be born, to the divine couple themselves. Some souls earn that and get it. And the Lord himself will fulfill that. 5, they say it's the supreme that just transcends everything else is Madhura Bhava. And these are called bhavas, 5 moods. That's lover and beloved. And of course, Krishna and Radha epitomize that very well. Before we move up past this chart, we can look here at 4 modes that happen, 4 great boons that happen. You've heard me talk about them before: Samipya, Salokya, Sarupya, and Sayujya. I like it very much because it ends in Sayujya, which means that if you understand bhakti at a deep level, you also know that, as Narada says up here, God and his devotees are one. And then Sandilya says, the inner organ, they dissolve everything completely into the Lord through the inner organ. That's the mind. So both these great fathers of Bhakti Yoga here, these great teachers, are telling us, then we come along with a teaching like Sayujya, how to immerse yourself in God. And the Lord will conduct that. How? After you've, and in the course of doing all of these, see, conducting arati for the deities, offering puja, doing a mantra, singing devotional hymns, reciting the scriptures for others, and fulfilling the 5 yagas. Maybe I didn't explain that. 5 yagas are basically to the subhumans. That would be plants and animals, basically. Then to mankind, Narayaga it's called. Make sure you do your sacrifices to that. Again, family and Sangha is a good way to safely do that. And then the 3rd sacrifice is to the Pitris, the Pitri dish, see. I like to call it, that's that. Ancestors are called. You keep your ancestors in mind, you keep them in hopes for their enlightenment, in hopes that if they are reborn here again, it'll be in a very conscious way. From what they learned in their last lifetime, they'll remember it, carry it forward, pay it forward, as you say. So you have a concern for the Pitris. And then the Devas and Devis, you worship the gods and goddesses. So we're talking about that. Sri Krishna bowing before the altar and so forth. Yes, we worship. You'd worship Kali, you'd go next door to the next temple and worship Radha Krishna. See, you've been there with me to India, some of you, where you just walk next door to the Kali temple at Dakshineshwar, and there's a beautiful image of Radha and Krishna. And now all of a sudden you're bowing down and offering flowers or receiving flowers from that same image that was worshipped in the same temple that Sri Krishna used to attend. So you're on hallowed ground, no doubt. So all of this means then, oh, did I finish that? The 5th, yeah, the 5th one is to the rishis, the great teachers, your guru, for instance. I'm Gurubhyo Namaha, I'm Paramagurubhyo Namaha, I'm Paraparagurubhyo. The whole echelon of gurus that you came down from is your heritage, spiritually speaking. And then all the teachers that they learned from, and all the teachers, which are rishis, that pass the truth on to you and to humanity especially. Well, those are what's called then the 5 yaga sacrifices. And remember, all sacrifice belongs to Ishwara, we just said earlier in the class. Back to this. These 4 then are very beautiful expressions. Samipya means you're dear to God, like the son of a king. And the son of a king will never want for anything, they say. Even an evil son of a king gets everything he wants. Salokya, same loka as God, means you're born in the same world as God. Like you have been born here with Sri Ramakrishna, and you have his form. People who worship Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother begin to look like them and act like them, speak like them. And if you have the eye to see, then you'll see this happening. It's sort of, it is kind of a growing of two horns. There's a kind of transformation that happens to people who are really dedicated bhakti-wise to the ideal, ishta, at one point of devotion to their ideal. Again, it's one ideal is important. And mixing it up too much dilutes it. Sarupya means same form as God. So same space, same world, same form. All of this becomes yours. You have inherited this, and thou art that. Finally, Suyuja, as I've already mentioned, is immersion into God. To put a final capper on this, then let's go ahead, as we were just about to do, and see a deeper look into Shantadasha and the other four. The way I would express this earlier is that in this way, in order to realize God, the Vaishnavas advise taking one of the 5 divine attitudes of worship. These bring about higher knowledge in the mind. Peacefulness, the absence of egotism are the early signs of spiritual progress here. These bhavas are to be assumed within 3 devotional modes and result in 4 types of liberations. So there's 4 types of liberations. All of this are the connections we want to make in bhakti yoga, the way I've been for so long, transmitting and teaching and even harping on the connections we're trying to make in the 8-limbed yoga and the connections we want to make in Vedanta. Connections are all important if you want to go deeper than religion. If you want to go deeper than even the kind of spirituality that they're proposing nowadays. You have to make these deep connections. And then you'll know that you're the son or daughter of Sri Ramakrishna. All right, well, here's quotes about each one of them. The Shantabhava, like the rishis of ancient India, Sri Ramakrishna said, they had Shantabhava. So it goes really well with those 5 sacrifices. I mean, if you do your sacrifice to the rishis, like to your guru every day, and do the work, then peace will come upon you. Why do you think we say it all the time? It's not just as fun to say, shanti, 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 or that we want peace, world peace. World peace is that peace will never come to this world. So why are we saying it? Because it will come to us, individual. And then we'll be able to pass it on to our children, to others, not until, and you get everything through peace first. So he said also, this is this serene attitude, like that of the rishis of old. It does not cherish any idea of worldly enjoyment. So again, as I was just saying, it's its own fruit. Narada says bhakti is its own fruit too. So those things that would come from the tree of bhakti would also be unique fruits. Then there's the attitude of a servant, like Hanuman towards Ram, he says here. The monkey god, Hanuman. This mood epitomizes Hanuman working with the strength of a lion for Ram, or the selfless service of a mother towards her children. These are all quotes from Sri Ramakrishna from the Gospel. Madhura Bhava, in the middle, similar to a woman's intense love for her paramour, this sweet mood contains all the other 4 within it, like Radha's and Mirabai's love. So we have Mirabai here, totally in love with Sri Krishna, and Radha, of course, the same. The gopis, of course, the same, but none could really match the intense love of Radha for her Lord. Beautiful story where Radha's there with some of the other gopis, and they're all crying because they miss Krishna. He's gone away, and they're actually weeping. Radha's not weeping. So one of them says, you must be so hard-hearted, so callous. You're not weeping. Our Lord has left us. There's no tears in your eyes. And one of the other gopis speaks up on her behalf and says, there's no tears in her eyes because the fire of her yearning is so intense for Krishna that when the tears try and come to her eyes, they burn up. So this is, again, an inner devotion that knows no boundaries and is incomparable to any other kind of devotion. And we know that from Sri Ramakrishna's own tendency not to demonstrate his bhakta outside, his bhakti outside. He could lose himself in dance, no doubt, and would, but lots of times that would bring a lot of curiosity seekers. And he would often ask Mother, just take that light inside, take that light back inside. Anyway, these are great examples. The attitude of a lover for the beloved. They would give everything up for that. And then Vatsalya Bhava, like Kausalya for the baby Ram. And also Yashoda's attitude towards Krishna is a good example of this mood. The father protects the child and the mother feeds it with her very life's blood. So this is the attitude of parent for the child. And vice versa, as I was saying too. Sakyabhava, like the cowherd boys towards Krishna. You don't hear quite as many stories of the gopas as you do the gopis, but there was a whole period in Sri Krishna's life where he had such close friends with the cowherd boys, and they had such adventures together. You'll have to read, great teachings like the Mahabharata and other Srimad Bhagavatam and so forth to find those out. And Master says in conclusion here, friends say to each other, come and sit near me, and they feed each other with food they have already partaken of. So usually you would look twice or look askance at taking food from someone's plate that even if you knew them. But in this case, it was just like even Sri Ramakrishna would accept food. Later on in life, no. But in that early stage, yes, he did partake of that kind of oneness with them. In the remaining minutes, not sure if we can cover it all, but it would be a good way of segueing into next week, because I got, I think, enough done in the bhakti yoga this time to allow us to just do a little bit next week and then get into what the Jnani yoga is like, what the Jnani feels is essential to his or her spiritual life. There's certain things the Jnani is going to want to concentrate on and know without a doubt to remove the ignorance so that their bhakti could effloresce. And whether it did so in a very quiet way inwardly, or whether it did so in an obvious way, like when Sri Ramakrishna was alive. So there's another teaching very famous in Bhakti Narada Sutras. You can take your pick. I accidentally made two charts. I think I've told this story. A story to you before about this two charts that I put together. And basically, I didn't know that I had already done one. This one is 322. This one is 269. So back earlier, this one came first. And then later on, I said, oh, I need to do the 8 devotional aids of Narada. I thought I'd forgotten that I already did it. So I did a second one. So we'll use this one for now, since it's the old standard, to find out about this teaching. Bhakti is intense love for Lord. In its intrinsic nature, this divine love is tantamount to immortal bliss. By attaining it, man becomes perfect, deathless, and verily fulfilled for all eternity. That's Narada's testament to divine love. And Sri Ramakrishna says about it in the middle there, according to Narada, chanting the names and glories of God with sincerity destroys the effect of past actions. The path of action is complicated. Bhakti yoga is simple and natural. A man must do his duties as long as he has to reap the results of his past lifetimes. But it is the development of love for God that is crucial. So it's like saying this yoga of bhakti and karma, if we want to try and dovetail them or bring them close together, then one of the things you're going to have to realize is that karma is, as Holy Mother said, karma is inscrutable. You have to pay for it in the body to the last farthing, she said. So this doesn't mean that you shouldn't go on with your practices of bhakti yoga and realize that love's the essential thing. So what I'm suffering? Didn't we just say suffering is? The suffering is the first noble truth. Am I ever going to get rid of it? Does that mean I'm exempt from it? Am I never going to suffer? Can I transcend it? It's going to put me off from the fact that love of God is the essential thing here. And that will lift you up beyond all karmas. In the end, in the interim, we'll look at Jnani yoga later. So here you have, and we just have a few minutes. We can read these down and then pick them up. And if you want to, I think both of these are in the Footfalls book. You could go and look at them before next class. You'll be more prepared for understanding them when I go through them again. But basically, Shravanam, Smaranam, Archanam, Kirtanam, Vandanam, Sevanam, Bhajanam, Sharanam are the 8 devotional aids that Narada recommends for the Bhakta. So it's a consummate path. I mean, we've looked at a lot of the teachings that have to do with Bhakti Yoga. We've looked at the moods that go with Bhakti Yoga. And we looked at the different bhavas that go with Bhakti Yoga. But here you have some actual path that's followed, a little bit more in accord with this first chart here. And this is also a series of methods that you can put together to. And remember, if you're there watching this, or if you're here, it's not my path. It's not allowed here. It's not what we're saying. Basically, yes, do all these. And even if you're a Jnani, yes, do all these, even if you just meditate and that you consider that your path. Yes, do all these as you do karma yoga, because the great souls have just told you that this karma yoga will get attenuated, even neutralized, if you realize that the worship of the Lord is the essential thing here, with form and beyond form. One will take you into the other. Smaranam is remembering the Lord. Adoring the Lord is Archanam. Singing and dancing for the Lord, Kirtanam. Worshipping the Lord is Vandanam. Serving the Lord is Sevanam. Bhajanam is having devotion for the Lord. And Sharanam, surrendering to the Lord completely. Sri Ramakrishna says, and we'll end here, Prema Bhakti, divine love for the Lord, is so intense and precious that it causes the devotee who experiences it to want to cast away even the body, which is usually so dear to living beings. So we will look deeper at these 8 devotional aids and use it as a segue into one other teaching I want to give on Bhakti Yoga next Sunday when we meet again. Jnananim Sharanam Devi Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Pado Padme Kaye Shritva Pranamami Mahor Mahor Pranamami Mahor Mahor. O Ramakrishna, teacher of all, O Sharada, goddess divine, in bosom holding those lotus feet, salutations to both, ever be of mine.